Hello and welcome to episode 626 of the official EstablishTheRun.com podcast. My name is Adam Levitan, as always joined by Evan Silva. Week 1 officially in the books. Learned a ton on usage in week 1. You know, that makes me very happy. Evan, how's it going today?
Good. We just recorded the AFC show, and now we're going to talk about the NFC.
On today's show, we're going to go team by team through each NFC squad, talking through everything we saw in week 1 and what it means going forward. We will be doing this every week right here. Be sure to hit the subscribe button. It is indeed free. Before we get into it today, one important thing. We are currently working on our rest of season top 150 rankings. Yes, there will be some significant changes from our final preseason rankings. We think rest of season top 150 is a very useful tool for trading, digesting how we think about players for the rest of the season. Again, that is available to anyone who has DraftKit Pro or the in-season product. All right. NFC, Evan, let's start with the Arizona Cardinals. Surprisingly, at least a little bit, I thought, the Cardinals gave themselves a very good chance to win this game in Washington. They were actually winning all the third quarter. But as expected, it was not pretty by any stretch. Josh Dobbs completed 21 passes. Oh, that's great. It went for 132 yards. I mean, absolutely pathetic. What did you think of the Cardinals week 1 game in Washington?
Didn't really change my mind about anything regarding the Cardinals. I have notes. I mean, they had their 3 receiver set was Michael Wilson, Marquise Brown, and Rondell Moore. I think that, well, they already announced that Josh Dobbs is going to make another start. I think that he's going to be on a short leash. They could go to Clayton Tune at any time. And then I was a little bit disappointed. Only 23 snaps for Trey McBride, 48 for Zach Ertz. This is a tanking team, and they executed the tank. So good for them. 0-1 Cardinals.
Couple of things. First, I thought Rondell Moore playing way ahead of Greg Dortch was at least notable, right? Like I don't want to play Rondell Moore in any leagues right now, but maybe if and when Kyler gets back. The second thing I just got to get off my chest. Zach Ertz, 9 months off a torn ACL, 30-something years old, even harder to watch than before. He got 10 targets. He turned 10 targets into 21 receiving yards. Do you realize how hard it is to turn 10 targets into 21 receiving yards? It's almost impossible. They absolutely have to free Trey McBride. My only thought is that they're trying to showcase Zach Ertz for a trade. Fine. You don't have to put him out there the whole game when he's lumbering around coming off of an ACL. So, yeah, that was really really
they're hurting his trade value by putting him on the field.
Exactly. And I'm ranting because I have a bunch of Trey McBride in best ball. You guys got me, but I'm still tilted. Okay. Atlanta. So this was the fear that Evan expressed before the season on Bijan Robinson. Bijan only outsnapped Tyler Algier 32-28. Tyler Algier actually got more opportunities, aka carries plus targets, than Bijan, 18-16. And most concerning for me actually wasn't that. It was at the goal line. Tyler Algier got 3 carries from inside the 5. Bijan got 0. Now, all that said, Bijan looked awesome, and they used him as an actual weapon, lined him out wide, gave him actual wide receiver routes. You saw the touchdown that he scored was insane. So I'm not like worried on Bijan, but Evan was more right than me. I did not think they would come out and actually give Algier more snaps than Bijan in week 1. Arthur Smith does not care whatsoever where a guy was drafted. Evan, any thoughts on Atlanta?
Yeah, I think that, we talked about it. We certainly agreed on the fact that Tyler Algier was an awesome late round pick. I mean, you got to be loving that. And you had him on your bench in week 1, but he's like a flex option during the bye weeks at very least. This offense, as you predicted before the season, is going to run through the running backs, the backfield. Bijan Robinson had 6 targets on Desmond Ridder's 18 pass attempts. Now that isn't going to sustain, but we talked about this too. Like some teams, their evaluation of Bijan Robinson, they compared him to Deebo Samuel. He's not just a running back.
Yeah. So
even though Algier is playing a lot, Bijan is going to be fine. I mean, I think that Bijan wound up with like 20 PPR points. When Cordero Patterson comes back, I think it'll be interesting to see, does he siphon away 5 to 7 touches a game? That's a little bit of a concern, but I think that you're feeling pretty good. You're not feeling good though if you drafted Kyle Pitts or Drake London.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I was mostly out on Pitts. I was like taking Goddard over Pitts, and we'll get to Goddard in a second here, which, and they went kind of in the same range, so I feel okay about that. I was taking a ton of Drake London in round 5 and best ball in like round 6, 7 in home leagues. And like, yeah, I am concerned. He only runs 20 routes. Mac Hollins ran 17 routes, but they don't care about like scheming anything to Drake London or Kyle Pitts. Mac Hollins had 4 targets on 17 routes. Drake London had 1 target on 20 routes. And like, I thought that Greg Allman, who does a great job for The Athletic, had a great point on Twitter. It was like, yeah, stop worrying about fantasy. Taking these guys in the top 10 and giving them 1 target on 20 routes, that's not a fantasy question. That is a real life question. If you did not want to use Drake London or Kyle Pitts, it's a real life question why you burn so much draft capital on him. That said, I still have big tickets on Arthur Smith to be the coach of the year. I still have big tickets on Atlanta to go far and win a lot of games this year. So I just think they're just winning in a way that is not conducive to Drake London and Kyle Pitts, still super high.
You're not going to cash out on those bets?
The cash out button is the enemy. It's for cowards. Don't never use the cash out button, anyone. Okay. Carolina. I thought Miles Sanders' usage was about expected, but good. He played 57% of the snaps, 66% of the running back carries, only ran 20 routes on 42 Bryce Young dropbacks, but did get a 15.8% target share. So I have a pretty big Miles Sanders fade on. I don't exactly feel like great coming out of this game, but I don't feel terrible either. Evan, what do you think of Bryce Young's NFL debut here and anything else on the Panthers?
Yeah, I had like no positive takeaways for the Panthers in this one. Miles Sanders lost a fumble. Chuba Hubbard played on every single third down. No, I mean, Bryce Young averaged 3.8 yards per pass attempt. I guess one positive could be Hayden Hurst, went 5 for 41 with a touchdown on 7 targets. This is not going to be, I don't think that this is going to be a fun fantasy year if you were drafting any Panthers.
Agreed for sure. And that was really my biggest thing on Miles Sanders. Offensive environment is so bad. By the way, Evan, defensive injury that caught my eye, J.C. Horn. Looks like he picked up a hamstring injury and is going to be out a little bit. Excellent corner for the Carolina Panthers. Bears. I, for one, am shocked that because Justin Fields got DJ Moore, he didn't suddenly turn into Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts. I mean, Justin Fields was bad in this game. Not that surprising to me. What was surprising was that DJ Moore, who they gave up a ton for, only got 2 targets on 46 routes. We're talking about a 5% target share for DJ Moore. That is absolutely laughable. What the heck happened to the Bears here in week 1, Evan?
Well, Justin Fields had a 3.3 yard ADOT. I'm thinking that Luke Getsy, the Bears offensive play caller, designed a short pass offense because he was worried about the offensive line issues. But Justin Fields, when he's actually had good games as a passer, which hasn't really happened since Ohio State, he's a downfield passer. You know, he's a vertical passer and a really good athlete. So the game plan was like defeating the strengths of Justin Fields. And Justin Fields played miserably. I mean, this was a brutal game to watch. I was watching this game with Bears fans. They're trying to blame the offensive line. I'm like, dude, the dude is holding the ball way too long, man. Like, he is the slowest processor of information in the NFL.
Yeah.
And it's not getting better. It was a very discouraging first game. I mean, the Bears were at home. The Packers were without their number 1 receiver, Christian Watson. They're breaking in a new quarterback, and they just get spanked like that. Like that's embarrassing.
It was. From the running back perspective, I mean, Roschon Johnson in the first half did not get a single opportunity. It was Khalil Herbert 9, Deontay Foreman 5, Roschon Johnson 0. In the second half, when it's mostly garbage time or stone cold garbage time, they bring in Roschon Johnson. He was awesome. Like, I'm excited to have Roschon on my bench a lot. I think the Bears have to start playing him more going forward.
Yeah, he had a sick 11-yard run where he just like
truck stick.
Yeah, truck stick, definitely.
Yeah. Cowboys, you know, it's hard to have takeaways from the Cowboys. They absolutely whitewashed the New York Giants defensively from the start. So I don't have a lot of notes here. My biggest note is that Tony Pollard got 3 carries from inside the 5-yard line in this game. Last year in 16 games, Tony Pollard got just 6 carries from inside the 5-yard line. Zeke stole 16 of those. We've talked about all summer Tony Pollard should have been a first-round pick, was an awesome early second-round pick if that's where you got him. I mean, it's just hard not to be really excited about having Tony Pollard in fantasy right now. Beyond that, it's hard to have many takeaways. I mean, if you guys watch this game, it was an absolute bloodbath, the likes of which you rarely ever see in the NFL. Evan, any Dallas thoughts from you?
Yeah, I put week 1, 2 lopsided a win for legit takeaways over G-Men. So I totally agree with that.
I mean, Dallas defense could be better than the Jets. I mean, Dallas defense is awesome. I mean, San Francisco, the Jets, Dallas, there's some legit defenses in the NFL right now. Lions. Awesome win for the Lions going into Kansas City. I know Kansas City didn't have Kelsey. I know they dropped a ton of balls, but still, always hard to go into Arrowhead and win. They did so. The big story coming out of week 1 from a fantasy perspective was how little Jahmyr Gibbs played. David Montgomery, 55 snaps. Jahmyr Gibbs, 19. David Montgomery, 20 routes. Jahmyr Gibbs, 9. After the game, and by the way, Jahmyr Gibbs looked awesome. I'm no tape bro, but I mean, you only have to have 2 eyes to see that Jahmyr Gibbs looked incredible in the game, like way better than David Montgomery. After the game, Dan Campbell says they were just easing Jahmyr Gibbs in. He's going to play a lot more going forward. We've heard that before. You know, they won the game. I will see if they actually change it. I thought that the biggest thing was they wanted David Montgomery in there for pass protection. Reliability was obviously a tough spot. But anyways, Evan, what'd you think of the Jahmyr Gibbs stuff and anything else on the Lions?
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs was so impressive. Obviously, he got vastly out-touched by David Montgomery and out-snapped 55-19 in snaps and then 21-9 in touches. But PFF, and I don't even know how you do this, Jahmyr Gibbs had 9 touches. PFF credited Jahmyr Gibbs with more forced missed tackles than any running back in the league in week 1. I need a fact check there, but I mean, it just Jahmyr Gibbs was incredible.
Yeah,
I might put in a trade offer for him. You remember before the season, Dan Campbell was talking about this backfield and he compared it. And Dan Campbell used to coach in New Orleans under Sean Payton. And he compared the backfield to Mark Ingram, Alvin Kamara. And Alvin Kamara kind of got eased in, you know. I think that's what they're doing. I think that, you know, within a few weeks, and this is a really good offense, it's an offense to invest in with the future NFL head coach, Ben Johnson, as the play caller. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy you put a trade offer in for this week.
Indoors on the turf, Jahmyr Gibbs will be better, and his offense will be better also. Other note that I had here on the Lions, you got to get Marvin Jones off the field. I mean, it's over for Marvin Jones. Guy is so bad. I mean, give me Khalif Raymond. Give me anyone over Marvin Jones. They need Jameson Williams back and playing well ASAP if they're going to have a real chance on offense to do things this year. Packers. I thought Jordan Love was decent. I mean, the final stat line probably looks better than he played, 245 pass yards and 3 touchdowns. And yeah, the Bears defense was a joke as usual, but I thought it was a fine start for Jordan Love, especially when you consider he did not have Christian Watson. Romeo Doubs was limited by a hamstring issue. So I thought a pretty good start here for Jordan Love and the Packers. Evan, what did you think of them in week 1?
Yeah, and I've been, you know, kind of like maybe very skeptical on Jordan Love, and I was impressed. Now, there were wide open dudes running through the secondary against the Bears. You know, I mean, there were a lot of wide open guys. But as you mentioned, no Christian Watson. He's out here throwing to Jaden Reed, Luke Musgrave. You know, the running backs, Romeo Doubs caught 2 touchdowns playing through a hamstring injury. I thought Jordan Love looked really athletic. He was pretty aggressive. He didn't take sacks. The biggest concern, I think, right now is Aaron Jones, who on an awesome touchdown, long touchdown, like 36-yarder, he grabbed the back of his left hamstring. And I don't know, after the game, he said that he could have returned. But, I mean, Aaron Jones has a little bit of an injury history, soft tissue stuff. That's a little bit of a concern. A.J. Dillon was awful in this game, by the way, just relentlessly buried in the backfield by the Bears. Yeah,
not good. We'll see on Aaron Jones' status. If he's out, we'll have a lot more to say about A.J. Dillon on Friday night's show. Rams. Man, really got this one wrong. I thought that Seattle would shred on offense. I didn't think that the Rams offense would be able to do much without Cooper Kupp, and the exact opposite happened. Seahawks couldn't do anything, and Rams offense was awesome. At this point, it's just like Matthew Stafford, to me, is a kingmaker at the wide receiver position. We saw him set records with Calvin Johnson. We saw him set records with Cooper Kupp. Now we get Tutu Atwell and Puka Nacua going off for 100-yard games against a tough, or at least talented, Seattle secondary. I mean, Matthew Stafford is a rainmaker for the wide receiver position. Evan, what did you think of this surprising, at least to me, result for the Rams in week 1?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I thought, Matthew Stafford is a teammate elevator. I mean, Kenny Golladay had big games with him, or big seasons. Marvin Jones, he is an elevator. But this was like a really interesting game overall because there were like a lot of surprises. Tutu Atwell had a big game. Puka Nacua had 15 targets. A fifth-round rookie. Now, he generated some buzz during training camp. I guess I should have taken it more seriously. It was a very condensed wide receiver distribution. Puka Nacua actually played outside. And then Tutu Atwell was the kind of movement Z, and then Van Jefferson was the third receiver. And we didn't get the big game from Tyler Higbee, but I think that Puka Nacua actually might have staying power even when Cooper Kupp comes back, because Cooper Kupp's going to play in the slot, and Puka Nacua was like 75% outside.
I totally agree.
So I think he's like and he's better than Van Jefferson. Who we've been through that. We've been through that. I think he's an awesome pickup this week.
Yeah, so do I. I think that also if you have Cooper Kupp on your team, this was an awesome result. Because at some point, like if the Rams go 1-4, 1-5, I mean, what's even the point? But if the Rams actually win some games here while Cooper Kupp is out, if they can get to 2-2 or 3-1 or something like that, maybe Cooper Kupp pushes it, and he's ready to rock and have a really good rest of the season, which would obviously be huge for anyone who has Cooper Kupp there. So yeah. Also, we have to talk about the running back stuff.
Yep.
I mean, we all thought Kieran Williams would have a role. It was obvious. He didn't play at all in the preseason. They've been talking about, the beat writers were on it, that Kieran Williams was going to have a role. I did not think that Kieran Williams' feature back ahead of Cam Akers in week 1 was really possible. Kieran outtouched Cam 14-11 until the Rams took a 24-13 lead late in the game. Also, Kieran ran 30 routes. Cam Akers ran 4. I mean, you can make a case, and you make a case for Gainwell. You make a case for Puka. You can also make a case that Kieran Williams should actually be the number 1 ad off waivers this week. Evan, what do you think coming out of the game about Rams running back?
Yeah, I question the staying power of Kieran Williams as he's 194 pounds. So I don't know. Obviously he's a big time waiver wire pickup. It's actually a really good waiver wire.
Really good.
Yeah, really good. Sam is doing our waiver wire article, and I mean he's got like 10 dudes that need to be picked up. So
yes.
we didn't have that at any point last year. I don't think there was like maybe 1 week where there were 4 good pickups. I mean, there's like 10 good pickups this week. Yeah. So I'd be aggressive on the waiver wire with the fab. I mean, there are a bunch of really good ones, and Kieran Williams is like, top 3.
For sure. By the way, one more note on Puka. He was second in expected fantasy points among wide receivers in week 1. Only Tyreek Hill had more expected fantasy points in week 1. Just crazy stuff from Puka in week 1.
In college, they would like manufacture touches for him at BYU. And he had like over his final 2 seasons, 40 rushing attempts, and he had 5 rushing touchdowns last year. And he's 6'2", 201. And he was second in the nation in yards per route run. I mean, he should have been drafted higher. I mean, and I know that's easy to say in hindsight, but he should have been.
Vikings. So this did not turn into the wild shootout that I thought that it could, but it was still a really productive game from Kirk Cousins. KJ Osborne actually ran more routes than Jordan Addison, but they both got 6 targets. Addison did score the touchdown, went 4-61-1, and yet another 20% target share or more for TJ Hawkinson. 9 targets this time for TJ Hawkinson, but man, the yards per completion on TJ Hawkinson, the where they're using him is just not downfield whatsoever, but still the volume is there for TJ Hawkinson to finish as the tight end 1 on any given week. Evan, what did you think of Vikings debut here for the 2023 season?
Yeah, and Hawkinson's got the Eagles, who we know they get shredded by tight ends, and no Nakobe Dean in the middle of their defense. So I think like Hawkinson on Thursday night should have a big game. Yeah, that stood out to me a little bit that KJ Osborne played ahead of Jordan Addison. It stood out to me that Alexander Mattison was like a big-time workhorse. However, this was a passing team against Tampa Bay. Kirk Cousins had 46 dropbacks. He also lost 2 fumbles to kill drives. But and then another concern was the left tackle Christian Darrisaw ankle injury and center Garrett Bradbury back. Both came out of this game injured, and now they got the Eagles' defensive line coming up. So I don't know, my Thursday night matchup is already up on the site, but I mean there are like significant injury concerns here in this game.
Yeah,
the upcoming game.
If you drafted Alexander Mattison, I think you come out of week 1 saying it's fine. It's what we expected. He was the workhorse. He was not explosive. We know that's not really his game. I think he'll have better matchups and more touchdown opportunities going forward. So yeah, I think it's fine for Mattison. Not great, not terrible. Yeah,
Mattison was 74% of the snaps, 5 of 6 third downs, and he was on the field for all 3 of the Vikings goal line chances.
Saints. So Derek Carr's debut, I thought, went pretty well. Goes over 300 yards, and you can see how like there is upside here because Rashid Shaheed can really, really play. I know we said that a bunch in the offseason. Dude can play. I thought Michael Thomas, who I've written off a bunch of times, looked pretty good. And obviously Chris Olave is just like a straight baller. And they didn't even really have to use Juwan Johnson or Taysom Hill in this game. So I thought it was a pretty good spot for New Orleans to get off here. They did so. They could not run the ball whatsoever. But when you're facing Tennessee and Jamal Williams gets 20 out of 21 running back touches, it's not going to be efficient. I mean, Jamal Williams sucks, and Tennessee's rush defense is very good. So, yeah, what do you think of Derek Carr's Saints debut, Evan? Anything else on them?
Yeah, I mean, Jamal Williams is, I think going to remain a 20-touch candidate for the next 2 2 weeks.
I need Kendry Miller back before Kamara's just been so bad. I mean, get Jamal Williams out of there. Let me see Kendry.
Oh, I mean, he was facing Tennessee, man. Now he goes against the Panthers, who just got dump trucked by the Falcons. So he's going to get it together, man. I mean, Jamal Williams, you know he can score touchdowns.
Yeah. God, that was so frustrating.
Yeah.
Okay. Giants. It's hard to have takeaways on Giants because Daniel Jones had a horrible game. No doubt. He also could not drop back without having Micah Parsons or someone else in his face the entire game. They had absolutely no chance whatsoever. People are going back to the Daniel Jones sucks. They can't win with this guy. Blah, blah, blah. It's one game. He brought him to the playoffs last year and won a playoff game last year. I'm not ready to say that Daniel Jones is completely drawing dead here to have a reasonable season. Evan, what do you think of the absolute meltdown that the Giants had on Sunday Night Football?
They lost 40-0, and again, I don't have anything. I don't really have anything to say. Daniel Jones was terrible in that game, and Evan Neal, their right tackle, was he just got destroyed.
One thing, Wan'Dale Robinson was inactive for this game. I think they're going to try to ramp him up and get him some limited work sometime in the next month or two. Jalen Hyatt did get 17 routes, and they left their starters in, and they had like Saquon Barkley when they were getting absolutely trucked, and Daniel Jones in just getting trucked. Jalen Hyatt did run 17 routes, which I thought was at least notable. He's going to have a rotational role here right away. All right, Eagles stuff. Man, this is like such a weird thing. We spent so much time this offseason talking about Eagles running back. One thing that we got right was that Kenny Gainwell's role was going to be bigger than people expected. One thing that I got wrong, at least, was that Rashad Penny was going to have the base back role and that DeAndre Swift, and I didn't think that it was possible for Kenny Gainwell to have a feature back role. So all those things came true. Rashad Penny was a healthy scratch. Kenny Gainwell not only played a lot, but was the clear-cut feature back. DeAndre Swift hardly played at all. So I have some thoughts here, Evan, but I'm curious your initial reaction to what we saw from Eagles running back rotation.
Yeah, I mean, it was surprising. Obviously we're all like heavily invested in Kenny Gainwell in best ball. So it's nice, but I mean, he didn't really help us in the first week. I don't know. And now they're on a short week, and Kenny Gainwell came out with a rib injury. So we're still very much in wait and see mode. And at the end of the day, they're probably not going to be giving anybody 18 touches in an individual game, maybe even the rest of the season. So I'm like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boston Scott was active and mostly played special teams.
Right.
If Kenny Gainwell has this rib issue, maybe they get Rashad Penny up also, or maybe Kenny Gainwell's inactive on Thursday. We will see there. I thought one of the biggest takeaways, though, aside from all that, coaches just don't like DeAndre Swift, man. You know? And I know people like hate when I say that. I think DeAndre Swift is awesome. If I was a coach and all I had to go on was the information I had now, I would be playing a ton of snaps for DeAndre Swift. But coaches, this is the second coaching staff that just does not seem to like the guy. He was active, but he barely played. I don't know, man. There must be something that we're missing on the outside on DeAndre Swift. And by the way, we had a pretty big, nice fade on DeAndre Swift, which I guess feels good right now. But it's just a weird thing in real life for the coaches just not to want to use DeAndre Swift at all. Any thoughts on that, Evan?
I mean, we've talked about it so much, you know, like he bounces, runs outside, and he taps out, and, you know, he doesn't break tackles, you know, on interior runs. And, you know, he's always been efficient with his touches. But I think that you're right. Coaching staffs don't love him. The Patriots deserve credit for a great game plan here. Obviously, they went down 16-0 early, but they did a really good job of limiting the damage that the Eagles offense were able to do. They played a ton of zone. They're one of the highest percentage man teams over the past several seasons, the Patriots, but they use zone against Philadelphia. And I mentioned it on the Friday show that the Eagles last year were the best offense in the NFL against man coverage.
Yeah.
And the Patriots played zone. So they switched it up on them.
Yeah, I ended up playing Jalen Hurts in cash on DraftKings. And, you know, one of the things I thought was like, yeah, I get that the Patriots play a ton of man. I get that the Eagles shred man. But Bill Belichick has had literal months to get ready for this.
Exactly.
You know? And so, yeah, that was just another mistake by me in week one. The Dallas Goedert air ball, I would not worry about. Dallas Goedert played a ton, ran a ton of routes. Patriots are just very, very good against the tight end position. San Francisco, I didn't have a lot of notes here other than like Brock Purdy maybe more than a game manager. Like I thought Brock Purdy played really, really well. Obviously, it's easy to look really good when you have the weapons that he has. Brandon Ayuk absolutely went off. Any thoughts for you on 49ers with a really good win? I mean, they went across the country for an early game with Brock Purdy and absolutely housed the Steelers. Any thoughts on 49ers, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, this was just a clinical, surgical performance by San Francisco in both the run and the pass games. You mentioned Ayuk. I mean, this dude is like a freaking baller. One thing that I noticed when I was doing the team previews, and I did the 49ers team previews, and I think the video team clipped this. We talked about it at one point, that Brock Purdy like showed a lot of trust and chemistry with Brandon Ayuk down the stretch last year. And I wonder if they're kind of building on that rapport. Brandon Ayuk also was awesome as a blocker. On Christian McCaffrey, I think it was 65-yard touchdown run. Brandon Ayuk just put this dude on his ass and like kept running with Christian McCaffrey. And you know coaches are going to love that. You remember Kyle Shanahan used to like kind of not like Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah.
Or at least he was like trying to use motivational tactics. Brandon Ayuk like was kind of a little immature coming out of college, and you know they try to kind of like whip him into shape. They played him behind Trent Sherfield at one point. Brandon Ayuk is a man today. This dude has grown up, and he was a man on the field on Sunday.
Yeah, and the wide receiver stuff is for Ayuk. Like Debo cannot do what Brandon Ayuk can do as a route runner, getting open. Obviously, Debo brings incredible yak ability and tons of other skills. But yeah, Brandon Ayuk is the #1 wide receiver for this team.
I was a little surprised they did not use more of Elijah Mitchell, who kind of had like a quiet training camp.
Agreed. I thought they would use a ton more. Historically, they have used a ton more Elijah Mitchell. It was good sign for Christian McCaffrey that they did not use more Elijah Mitchell here. Oh, by the way, no other tight end besides George Kittle got a target, and the wide receiver 3, Juwan Jennings, only got 1 target. So yeah, there's a lot of playmakers here, but at least it condensed to those 4 playmakers: CMC, Ayuk, Debo, Kittle. All right, Seattle. Really concerning game for Seattle, man. Really concerning. I mean, played slow, could not do anything, could not get first downs against a Los Angeles Rams defense that is absolutely devoid of talent.
They ran 12 offensive plays in the second half of this game.
Yeah, I mean, it was as bad as it got, and I've been extremely high on Geno in this past game. I know Evan has too, so I'm curious your take here, Evan. It gives me a little bit of heart palpitations here for them to be in such a clean spot and face plant so badly. What do you think about Seattle pass game right now?
Well, I think that you need to give Raheem Morris, the Rams defensive coordinator, some credit here because they were dropping 8 into coverage a lot and taking away Seattle's ability to do anything in the downfield passing game, number one. Tyler Lockett missed time in this game, number two. This is so frustrating because I'm heavily invested in Seattle. They lost both of their starting offensive tackles in the game to injury, and then today they signed 41-year-old Jason Peters off the street, which suggests that they anticipate one of or both Charles Cross and Abe Lucas to miss time. So that is scary. You know, that was one of the things that I had like built the analysis on, was that these tackles who played so well as rookies last year would maybe even take a step forward, and that could allow them, you know, to increase Geno's ADOT and everything else, and boom, they're gone. You know, and I don't know when they're coming back, and it sucks. One thing that I was wrong about a lot. Okay, in week one. One thing I was right about is that they would come out with Kenneth Walker in the lead running back role, and he was the clear one over Zach Charbonnet. However, they did not run the ball well against the Rams. And so that makes me wonder, are they going to start to ramp up Zach Charbonnet? So I don't know. It was a rough opener, man.
I thought it was not a great start for Zach Charbonnet because he only played 11 out of 50 snaps in a game that they trailed in, which Zach Charbonnet should be playing more in. The problem was they gave DJ Dallas 11 snaps, right? So if those 11 had gone to Charbonnet and it was 22 snaps for Charbonnet, I would have been way more excited. I thought it was a positive usage debut for JSN, Jackson Smith and Jigba. He ran 19 routes on 29 Geno dropbacks, earned a 19% target share for the game. So yeah, I mean, you know, the 3 wide stuff for JSN, he's going to be out there. And like Evan said, when teams take away the deep stuff, JSN underneath, I think is going to be a really viable option. I still like having JSN on my teams a lot. Tampa. So they were reasonably productive. Like Baker Mayfield still was not impressive, still bad, but they were reasonably productive. Mike Evans got there. Rashad White played a ton, 54 snaps, only 10 snaps for Sean Tucker, 8 for Chase Edmonds. But it's just not going to be an explosive offense with Baker here. What did you think of Tampa's debut in Minnesota?
The only note I really had here was that Rashad White operated as like mostly like almost like an every down back, but like he wasn't good.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Sean Tucker is the number 2. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add.
Yeah, I think Mike Evans, like if you want to talk about putting stuff on tape to get traded, the Bucs have to trade Mike Evans before the trade deadline. And Mike Evans is going to keep putting good stuff on tape because he's like one of the best receivers in the NFL. So yeah, I think having Mike Evans is good in the immediate. And if he goes to somewhere like, I don't know, Kansas City or Detroit or something like that.
Ooh, that would be hot. Oh God, awesome. Get him with Mahomes, please.
Last one we're going to do here today in the NFC is the Washington football team. Couldn't fathom really a worse start for Antonio Gibson. Loses a fumble, which he's had struggles with. Even in a game that was close and they were trailing most of the third quarter, Brian Robinson ended up out-snapping Antonio Gibson 43-25. Touches were 20-4 in favor of Brian Robinson. Now, Brian Robinson wasn't great. The touchdown pass that he caught was a little bit fluky. He was certainly not the first read or second read on that play. But still, having Brian Robinson over Antonio Gibson, I think if people have that, they have to feel good about it right now. What did you think of that, Evan, and anything on Sam Howell's? I guess that was his second career NFL start.
Yeah, I thought he was fine. He took 6 sacks. Antonio Gibson loses a fumble. Yeah, I mean, I guess you're going to end up being right on that, the Brian Robinson over Antonio Gibson take. I mean, during the preseason, it was even.
Yeah.
Yeah, but then in the first game, it wasn't. So
yeah,
the real stuff has started. I don't think Terry McLaurin is healthy right now.
Yeah. I think they have the fumble. Antonio Gibson was going to play a lot more if not for the fumble, I think. Okay. Number one. Number two, yeah, McLaurin may not be fully healthy, but they have talent out there, man. Curtis Samuel can still earn targets, and he did in this game. We know about Jahan Dotson and Logan Thomas. I thought he'd be like real limited and play like a rotation with Cole Turner and John Bates. Logan Thomas goes out there and looks pretty spry. 4 catches for 40+ yards. So, yeah. All right. We've done it. We have looked back at every team in the NFL's week 1. Hope this was helpful. Hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll be back Friday night to get set for the week 2 DFS slate with Wiggins, myself, and Silva for in-season subscribers. For Evan. For producer Luke. I am Adam. Good luck, everybody.